The form FAAINVE is used to create all sorts of invoices. This particular video is talking about direct pay invoices. You determine what type of invoice you're going to pay by clicking the drop down. A direct pay invoice is one that is not related to a purchase order and is not designed to liquidate a general encumbrance. A regular invoice is an invoice that relates to a purchase order, and when you connect it to the purchase order, it will decrease the amount of the encumbrance of the purchase order. If you do general encumbrances and you want to liquidate them when you pay, you would create a general encumbrance invoice, and it will ask you for that encumbrance number so that it can liquidate it in the same manner of a purchase order. But we're doing a direct pay invoice in this situation. Depending on what type of invoice, besides the vendor, you may get additional fields that require data. When we do a regular invoice, I'll show you that additional field. Next is automatically populated in the document number, and it will assign the next system generated banner invoice number. You then key in your vendor number, and if you need to look it up, you can just do the drop down. It will allow you to choose a particular entity. If the vendor is on hold for any reason, this box will be checked. It's grayed out because it's informational and is not a field that you can update on this form. Do a next block to go to the document header. One thing I want to make very clear right at the beginning, you'll notice that document accounting box is checked. This means that the FOPLs will apply to any number of commodities that are on this invoice. Commodity level accounting allows you to have separate FOPLs for separate commodities. This first invoice that we're going to do is going to use document level accounting, so I don't need to change anything here. Tab through, and you'll notice that there is no default address. So what you need to do is you need to search for an address for this vendor. The easiest way to do that, however, is to click on the sequence number, and what it will do is take you to the address information query, and it will show you all of the available addresses. In this case, it's a single address, so we just select that. You'll see it pulls back the address code and sequence number, and as you tab through, it updates the address information. Alright, you would enter a discount code from the table if you used any. The payment due date, you can make it the bank that you're going to pay from, the vendor invoice number. Note that if the vendor is set up to receive direct deposits, it will say yes. If not, and if a check is going to be issued, then it would say no. Now, if you need to create a credit memo, you need to check this box, the credit memo box. That way, everything that you type in dollar-wise will be a reduction of payments to that vendor. It indicates whether or not this vendor receives a 1099 at the end of the tax year. And if you are an authorized user, you can override a direct deposit and generate a check on a specific invoice, even though most of the payments will be paid via direct deposit. But you must enter a payment due date, a bank code, and a vendor invoice number. We then do next block. This is the commodity form. We are not using commodity codes at the LCTCS. We do not have a table set up, so you would tab over to the next large field, and this is the description field. This is where you can type in free-form information relating to what you're purchasing. You key in the approved amount. You can type in any amount that's discounted. If there are additional costs, let's say a shipping charge that you want to add to this item, you can do that. You'll see that it totals down to the net. The item is in suspense initially, and in this case we're going to just do a single commodity. We do a next block, and it goes to the accounting page. We tab through and we enter the FOPL. And it is good advice to tab through the fields on this form instead of using the mouse, because there are routines that operate behind these forms to validate fields. And we want to make sure that all the fields are validated. All right, you see as we tab through, the accounting amount fills in. We could split this among multiple FOPLs if we wanted to. In this case, we're not going to. We're using a single FOPL. When you're done, you go to completion, and as long as everything is balanced, you can go ahead and mark this invoice as complete, and you see it indicates that it's been completed and is forwarded to the posting process. Okay, the next invoice we're going to enter, we're going to use commodity level accounting. It's still a direct pay invoice, so we start it in exactly the same way. We do a next block to go to the header. But the first thing you want to do is uncheck the document accounting box. Unchecking it makes this document use commodity level accounting, meaning each commodity has its own unique FOPL or accounting record. Go through and we create the header the same as we did on the other to choose the address. Enter the payment date, the bank code, and the invoice number. We do a next block. We go to the first commodity. All right. And here we're going to add in the description for the first commodity. All right. Now once you've entered your commodity, you do a next block, and it takes us to the FOPL. We go ahead and we fill out our FOPL information. We tab through to get the information. If you have another commodity and you have to return to the commodity information, you can do a previous block. It will take you to that first commodity, and then you can do a down arrow or a next record to get a second commodity. You notice it changed item 2, and you enter the second information just as normal. Once you've entered the commodity information, you do a next block and it takes you to the accounting record. And notice there is no accounting record here. It says record count 0. That's because we are now on the second commodity and there are separate fopals for this particular commodity. So we go ahead and fill it out as we did before. Tab through. And if you're all done and you don't have any more, you don't need to go back and do a previous record. You just do a next block. And again, everything balances between the header, the commodity, and the accounting. So we go ahead and complete our document just as we did before. You'll notice that the document is now completed and has been forwarded to the posting process. So that's how easy direct pay invoices are. Thanks for watching.